Hey YouTubers, this is the Anonymous Reality TV Blogger. Hope you guys are having an amazing day today. I'm going to review Love Island Australia Season 3, Episode 12. And again, we've had another action-packed hour heading into Casa Amor. So basically the episode picks up, I don't know why, can I just say really quickly, why does Australia, they recap, of course, what took place previously, the first couple of minutes, but then they spend another couple of minutes basically redoing like the last 5 minutes of the previous episode. And I'm like, okay, if we just did the recap, why can't we just get into the new material? I don't understand it. It's like a waste of 5 minutes to me. Anyways, so they basically edited Tina and Mitch's speeches on why they were eliminating Ronnie and Ari. And then after that, they showed the aftermath of people's reaction. Ryan had voiced how he knows that Courtney was pissed and went up to him and said, WTF. And then Ryan was trying to justify it to Mitch and trying to say that, this wasn't the right forum for Ari. And then Aaron and Jess were alone, and he said, basically he was one of the main ones trying to fight for Ari to stay, and he was outnumbered, and that the guys really were trying to back Taku and back him and Emily being a couple if the feelings were genuine. And so just the irony of this conversation and what ends up happening 4 hours later just like has me so heated. And I have my own theory on why what happened 24 hours later happened. Anyways, with that being said, Ryan and Mitch pull Courtney for a chat, and they try to explain to her that, it wasn't anything malicious or bad intent, that they just felt like, Emily and Taku could really have that opportunity to explore things, and that Ari didn't have any connections. But the thing is, you don't know what bombshells or what's going to happen next on the show. So how can you just take the opportunity away from Ari? Like, it's not Ari's fault that none of the men there are into her. Like, what is she supposed to do? She's supposed to stay just like Courtney's staying to try to find her person. So I just felt it was like a very weird thing. And my thing is, all of the guys even said that they think something sketchy with Emily, because the following, day, she was all over Taku, and they were even saying, this wasn't the Emily of 24 hours ago, but now since we've saved her, now all of a sudden she's throwing herself at Taku. It seems suspect. So that should have told you right there that that wasn't the person to keep. So briefly before we get into the following day's activities, so they show, of course, the night cam vision, and Mitch and Tina are out on the daybed again. And then, Emily was able to sneak into bed with Taku, and I'm a little bit confused because I thought the rules, quote unquote, were that you had to be in the couple with the person in order to sleep in the bed with them. Otherwise, you would have to sleep as a couple, like in the day bed or out, somewhere else, basically, or the overlay room or wherever there's like the singles bed or whatever, but not in the main bedroom where all the couples slept. So I was a little confused with that. Also, so that happened. The next day, we heard like some moaning and groaning from Mitch and Tina, and they had like the sheets covered up on top of them and like showed like the end of their feet. So obviously something very intimate was happening. I guess is, confirmation, or I don't know, whatever it was, but whatever it was, they were having a great time. And anyways, so again, everybody kind of just, reiterates their concerns for Emily. And then Courtney and Nicholas have an issue because she's talking to him and, asking him a whole bunch of questions, and he doesn't really want to open up to her. And so Nick tells Zoe that, he wants to take a step back and move things a little bit slower with Courtney. And I knew immediately that he was not as interested in Courtney as he was claiming, and that he was just doing that so that he could make sure that he secured a couple. But once he was in the couple, he was going to be on the prowl and looking for something else. And it's happened to every single guy that has been coupled up with Courtney. First, they tell her, how gorgeous she is and this and that, and they want to get to know her. Then immediately when they couple up with her, it's crickets. Aaron did it to her. Ronnie did it to her. Nicholas now is doing it to her. Like, it's just been a thing that just keeps happening with her. So I don't know what that means for them in the future, but I don't know. It's not looking good. So then basically after that, it was kind of a boring day. They were pretty much playing in the pool, and then production basically gave them like a beer pong game. And like the goal of the beer pong game is basically who's ever like ping pong ball went into the red cups. There was like something under there, like whether it was a dare or you had to give your honest opinion on an islander or something. So the dares were really quirky. Like, it had Jess making out with the plastic flamingo. It had Lexi doing like some type of weird pole type of dance on a palm tree that just looked very sketch and disturbing. And then also they had Taku say who he had an intimate thought about to kiss the person. And so he immediately goes to kiss Courtney. And of course, Emily is like pissed because she's like, what the heck? Like, I'm throwing myself at you and you're saying another girl you're thinking about in that type of way. So she was like in her feelings. Then Mitch conveniently got the one that said if you were not in your current couple, because he was still coupled up with Emily at the time, who would you couple up with? And obviously that was Tina. Lexi got one that asked, which female islander doesn't she trust around Ryan to be alone with? And she said Emily. And so she tried to play it off like because she didn't know her as well. But deep down, I know that she really feels like Emily's trouble. So then also Tina got the question if a new female bomb came in, which of the guys would be, the first to turn their heads. And so she had said Taku, which I believe is true because it really has been Friendship Island for him the entire time. So anybody basically who's going to come in, he's going to be interested in until he can find his person. And then on the flip, Taku got the same question on which female islander would be the first to turn their heads if anybody new came in, a new guy that was a bomb that came in, and he immediately said Emily. And so Emily was just getting it left and right from everybody, just really speaking their truth about her. So I just felt like the focus on Emily today was like foreshadowing that something's not about to end well for her. So after that, the aftermath of the beer pong game, Emily has like a little bit of a chat with Courtney and says that she was frustrated that, she's trying with Taku, but then Taku basically says, that he's thinking about another woman, and she wanted to know, why is she doing all of this if his actions aren't matching his words? And I just found it ironic because I'm like, this is what everybody's saying about you. Isn't this the pot calling the kettle black, if I've ever heard of it? And it was just hilarious. So then after that, she goes and talks to Taku. Taku basically is trying to say, it wasn't a big deal. It's just part of the game. And, Taku's in the confessional saying, I don't know why I said that. But it's like, if you're somebody who's just being blatantly honest, you that's what came out of your mouth. It would have been fake if you had just said Emily's name just to say it, just to make her feel good, but really deep down it was somebody else. And it's like the reason why Australia loves you is because you're authentic, you're real and raw, no matter what. So I didn't have an issue with it, and I think the other Islanders didn't have an issue with it either because people were sketched out by Emily. Because you can't be all about Mitch this entire time, and then all of a sudden, because he chose, Tina, that you just completely, remove yourself, you completely disengage. And then only after you find out you're safe from elimination, you then start to act interested in Taku. Like, it doesn't work like that. It really seemed, sketch to people. So nonetheless, they get a text message. They start to get ready, and then they get a text message that there's going to be a recoupling or whatever. And so then it is funny because right before the recoupling, Nicholas pulls Courtney into the bedroom and is like, sorry about that. Earlier I was, I think I just was in my head. And Courtney's like, okay, like what is the rationale that you're telling me this now, right before the recoupling? And I knew her spidey senses were going off, like something is wrong here with him, coming to me with this at this particular point in time. Is he just trying to save himself in case there is an elimination? And the answer is yes. Ding, ding, ding. He probably wasn't expecting another recoupling so soon since, he and Zoe had just got there. And with there already being a double elimination last night, he didn't know what anything could happen. So he wanted to smooth things over with Courtney. But I do not buy for a second that he's interested in Courtney and that this was just to make sure he saved his spot. So anyways, after that, we get to the recoupling. And, of course, Sophie comes in and all of the guys have to stand up because it's the girls' turn to pick who they want to recouple with. So obviously, Tina and Mitch get back, to being recoupled again. And then Emily, of course, chooses Taku. Aaron and Jess are together. And also Zoe and Chris. And then Courtney and Nicholas, as well as Lexi and Ryan. And sidebar, I just want to say, Aaron, this whole facial hair thing he's got happening, he needs to continue it because it is looking very nice on him. It is making him look 100 times better, even though the host was being shady today and saying Ellen DeGeneres. He said Ellen DeGeneres and Jess, and I was like, oh my gosh, the shade of it all. But it was just funny. And so they did all of their recouplings. And so then Sophie basically was like, that's not all we have for tonight. We have also the powers with Australia, and Australia's been voting, and all of the girls, I need you to stand up here next to me. And so everybody's like, what is going on? And so she's like, yeah, one of you is going to be, they've been voting on who they think is the most likely to find love in the villa. And the person with the lowest votes is automatically eliminated. And I was like, finally, we're doing an actual vote where the people's votes actually matter. And it's not just the vote for the winner, but like actually the lowest voted person is actually going home. And it isn't a situation where you're trying to save people, because I feel like they always save the wrong person and it defeats the purpose of the vote. So, pretty much it was interesting watching the body language of the guys as each girl was named, who would be saved, So when she announced Courtney's name, Nicholas kind of gave like a little side handshake. Lexi was nervous because she misunderstood Sophie and thought she was eliminated. And so Ryan stood up and like gave her a hug. Chris immediately stood up because Zoe's name was called first. And he immediately stood up and hugged her and everything. And she had a cute recoupling speech with him. She was like, I love sharing a bed with him. And everybody just started to laugh. And it was cute. They're very cute. Sidebar, I want to say they make a better match than him and Rachel. Like, there's been little to no conflict with them in comparison. And I really see the connection between the two of them. It's very nice. So then also they have Aaron and Jess. So Aaron has like this huge sigh of relief. And it is hilarious because after that, Sophie's like, you're very, because Jess said in her recoupling speech that, he's very much into his skincare routine, like Jess. And so she was basically like, Sophie said, now you can give each other facials. And so everybody let out this awkward laugh, and it was hilarious. And I don't think Sophie had caught on. And so then she said again, she was like, yeah, logically taking the next step in your relationship is giving each other facials. And so then she realized by like the reaction that time of everybody just like cracking up. And she was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize when it just came out of my mouth. And I was just dying. I was like, poor Sophie. But I do like the fact that she's at least entertaining and engaging and everything, because not all of the hosts bring that type of energy. So I was thoroughly entertained. So weirdly, the bottom two was Tina and Emily, which I don't believe for a second that Tina was the real the real bottom two. I really think it was like probably Lexi or someone else. But nonetheless, Tina and Emily were the bottom two. And then ultimately, Tina, of course, was the one who was saved, leaving Emily as being the odd man out. And it was weird because like Emily really didn't have like a reaction compared to like other people who were eliminated, and she didn't really show any emotions until ultimately she did her exit interview. And so I found that interesting, like if either she knew deep down she was going to go, or if she just didn't want them to see her cry, and wanted to cry like alone. So I was sussing that out. And then she told Taku that, to contact her, she'll see him on the outside. I don't think it means anything. I just think it means friendship vibes, that she's just trying to make it seem as though it wasn't fake, her interest, because she made it a point to say in her exit interview that she was all about Taku from the beginning. And I was like, but no, you weren't, because if you were, why wasn't he on the first double date? You chose Ronnie and Mitch. Why wasn't he also somebody you were getting to know the entire time you were grafting Mitch? The only time you acknowledged him was when you were trying to make Mitch jealous during the workout challenge, because Mitch looked pretty booed up with Tina when it was Emily's turn to choose somebody. So she didn't want to mess that up. So she chose Taku to make Mitch jealous, and then was trying to kiss all over him to get a reaction out of Mitch. So she was never all about Taku until her safety was at risk, and when Mitch ultimately rejected her, and she had to make sure she had to secure a connection. And that was the only one that was most likely to be one. So that was that. So a couple of thoughts. So this obviously was the last episode of the week. So we pick back up on Monday. And Monday, of course, is going to be the start of Casa Amor week. And we have 6 women coming in since there's 6 men, and 5 men coming in since there's 5 single ladies at the villa. So I want to say a couple of things. First, I do not feel that Emily, this surprise eviction was on accident. I honestly think, and this is just my theory, this is not confirmed by any sources or anything, but my theory is production thought the guys were going to eliminate Ari the night before on the girls' side. And since that didn't happen, they threw in this extra elimination because they knew from their votes that Ari was well liked, and from social media that Ari was well liked, essentially, and threw this in to get Emily out. Because nothing else makes sense as to why you were going into Casa Amor with an uneven number of couples. Because the whole point of Casa Amor is to see if you're going to stay with somebody or not. Or even if you're in a friendship couple, still have the opportunity to meet somebody. You never go into Casa Amor with just like somebody extra. Like, it's weird. So it totally seemed like a surprise, like, hey, we got to make sure we get Emily out, because we thought that they were going to obviously choose Emily over Ari so that Ari would have an opportunity at Casa Amor to meet somebody. So I stand by that being the situation. I definitely think Ari was meant to experience Casa Amor at least. And then if nothing happened at Casa Amor, then ultimately she would be eliminated. But I don't think for a second she was supposed to be eliminated 2 nights ago, and that took production by surprise. So that's just my thoughts, because how upset and shocked the girls were and how upset and shocked Aaron was, it gave me the vibe that they weren't expecting for it to be Ari, especially with all the drama surrounding Emily. Who do I think is going to act up at Casa Amor? Based off the preview I saw, I definitely think Nicholas is number 1. Ryan, I feel, is a possibility. However, I can't suss out if him kissing this other girl is just a part of the challenges or if it's like a separate off challenge thing. So that's the part I do not know. But I definitely think for sure Nicholas is going to do his thing. Taku obviously is a single, so really whatever he does, it's not going to be, perceived as wrong because he's there to find, a match, a connection. So he's not in a couple. So I really think Nick is at the top, and I think Ryan is a close second, and I would even say Mitch, because Mitch, for whatever reason, likes to seem to be entertained by other women, even if he really does in fact still want Tina at the end of it all. So we will have to see how Casa Amor week goes. I can't wait. I believe this is the first season that Australia is doing it. I wish, unfortunately, the season was longer, like the normal 7 weeks that they have, but there was like an issue because somebody got COVID, which ultimately shut down the number of days that they could film for this season. So I think what they're doing strategically is scattering out the days, the episodes, so that way they still have enough, for the allotted number of episodes to still happen. So more to come on that. Please let me know your thoughts, and I will talk to you guys soon.